slowly drifting away, and it feels like I'm drowning, pulling against the stream, pulling against the...
Alright guys, on this episode we're going to be installing this guy right here. Motodyne, this is a used one. This is a Motodyne 5/16 Plenum Spacer for the VQ35. Not this. Okay. Then some of the things you're going to need. Obviously, you're going to need all the bolts that they provide you. This is mine's a use kit. I had to source my own washers for the strut bar, so I'm going to be trying to use these. Hopefully, these should work. Loctite, if you don't have one, you need a inch-pounds torque wrench. Okay, because all the bolts on the top of the manifold are top of the intake manifold are in inch pounds, not in foot pounds. Okay, you need a breaker bar with a 9/16 socket for the bolts for the strut bar, and some extensions, and a 10mm for your battery, and for the intake bolts, and that's about it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Oh, first thing, take out your battery, or disconnect your battery, and then we're gonna start by removing the front cover. Actually, yeah, we'll remove the front cover. You're gonna loosen this bolt here. You're gonna loosen this bolt right there. See if this thing can zoom in. Yeah, you're gonna loosen this bolt and slide this one back. That way you can lift the entire piece without screwing up, because I've been doing that all this time and it's wrong, so I fucked up. So don't fuck up. Remove that bolt first, then lift the entire thing. That way, because when you tighten this, you're actually putting pressure on it this way. So if you loosen it right now, you're gonna screw up all the bolts because they have pressure on them, which is why this guy right there is missing, because I removed them and it broke the entire thread. You can see how the thread's damaged. So don't do that. Don't be me at this point. Don't do that. And I was lazy that day, so I had forgotten that step. I just removed the entire strut bar off. So do that first. Remove the bolts. Remove your cover, which is just these two bolts. It's like you push it up and slides out from here. You don't need to touch your oil cap. And that's it. So, and then we'll start removing vacuum hoses. You don't have to remove too much. I think it's only that vacuum line. There's 2 or 3 lines in the back of the MAF. The throttle body. There's a couple hoses behind the throttle body, and there's 2 or 3 connectors you have to unplug, including that one right there. And yeah, that's about it. You don't have to do actually that much to get access to it. And then basically you just unbolt all the bolts. I'm gonna loosen up my intake, and hopefully it should slide out, because this intake is very, very stiff. So, because it goes all the way to the front, and there's several mounting points, so we'll see. But yeah, we'll do that, and let's get going. Alright guys, so I removed the strut bar. It seems like these bolts are getting more damaged every time they get removed, so this might be the last time I install these guys. I gotta see if I can clean them up or something. But alright, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove this clamp, which I already removed, and we're gonna try to slide this out, which, oh good, okay, it's pretty loose, so that's fine. That can stay like that. So now we're gonna take some clamps and remove some of these hoses here. Trick, if ever you guys get a hose that doesn't want to remove, you take a flathead screwdriver and you put it up against whatever it's not trying to budge off, and you do that. There. Basically, you just put it in between and wedging it. That way it gets to start, and that's when you start pulling. So, let's try to remember where all these pieces go, because you will have to connect them afterwards. So don't be like those retards on Facebook. They're like, hey, where's this random connection going? And they have no idea where it's going because they just unplug shit and they have no idea where it goes. So keep an eye out on where things are. So yeah, I'm gonna start removing all the bolts. Oh, the important thing. One of the steps in the whole thing is that you gotta remove this bolt and this bolt. Literally the screw. So you need a 4mm socket, okay, which is very difficult to come by, but you guys can probably find them somewhere. That fits perfectly fine, and then you can remove that lug. You have to remove this one and this one prior to installing the spacer, because there's a bolt will have to be going here. Okay, so they're giving you extra bolts for that. All right, let's get started. I'm gonna spare you the unbolting of all that. So let me do that and then I'll get back. Alright guys, I realized that it's far easier for me to remove my intake and, sorry, that's a lot of zoom. Oh, whatever, I'll just leave it there. It's a lot easier for me to remove my intake just from here to there, so we can get access to some of these pieces back here. It looks like my shitty ass paint job is cracking. Do that while I'm at it. So yeah, I removed my intake. That should be, sorry, my fucking bald head's in the way. So I'm gonna remove the remaining hoses back here and this hose right here specifically, and then we'll continue with the install. But yeah, just keep a note, removing the intake is far easier. So I wanted to stress this for your sake, well, mine too. When you remove these bolts, you see how they're numbered? They have a specific length, especially number 1 through 6. They do have different measurements. So in order to not have to measure each and every fucking bolt, because there's 18 of those fuckers, what I'm going to do is, as I remove them, I have, guess what, 18 different pieces of blue stickers. And guess where each one is going to go on? Yep, each bolt is going to receive a number and it's going to be going in a bag. That way if I ever have to put them on, you don't have to mess with any of this shit having to measure it. So make sure you do this. It takes a little bit of time to get each one in, but it's definitely worth it. Okay, I'm going to start doing this now. Alright guys, so as you get all your bolts out, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to look like a bag of just glue and metal. These are all the bolts are already labeled, so if you ever have to do this shit again, you already have them here. It saves you a ton of time. So that's awesome. Now that we have that removed, I went ahead and I removed the last 2 hoses. And then I'm just going to remove this bastard. And, oh, look at that. Look how clean this shit is. Look at that. No oil, nothing. And even that, look at that into the intake, which you might not be able to see it, but there's absolutely no oil in here, which is fantastic. Fantastic product. Alright, now Vietnamese. So, I'm going to go ahead and repaint this because my paint blows and probably didn't get enough in there. So it's cracking, so I'm going to go ahead and clean that up and repaint it while it's out here. And I'm going to put this aside. Now, oh, look at that. I'm just going to leave this seal in here. I'm not going to actually put it. So, it's fine. There's no oil whatsoever. I mean, there's a little bit, but it's nothing like before. Before, all of this was caked in oil. All of it. All of it, all of it, all of it. So, the oil catch can is a definite must for anybody with a beaky. Now let me show you a little trick. See this piece of shit right here? This is your oil cap gasket thing, whatever. Now what happens is that this is oversized. Don't be retarded, do not cut this, don't do anything stupid. Whenever you put the manifold on, you have to make sure this is back. Because what will happen is that you'll press it. See how my finger's doing it? Let me see if I can see it on my own camera. You might not be able to, but let me take it off the tripod and show you, because this is where half the time people are like bitching about vacuum leaks. It's this shit right here. You see how, let me lift up the, you see how the waypoint of the metal intersects with the seal. See, even if I put this, touches the seal. Well, guess what happens? Most of the time, actually, let's pretend that this seals the plenum. So when you squeeze it, see what happens? It gets stuck. So this is something you want to avoid. You always want to make sure that this is pulled back and this is in between there. Okay? And that's it. I mean, that looks good. There's no oil. Everything's all clean. Exactly as it should be. So this bad boy right here is definitely worth the investment and the install money. Or the investment and the install, I should say. That is very little residual oil. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna try to fix the paint, the shitty paint that I got on mine. And also remember, if you're ever gonna do anything with your intake, if you're not gonna be in front of it like I am, cover it. Put something over it, that way you don't drop shit into your engine. Okay? So since I'm gonna paint stuff now, I'll leave it out like that, and I'll finish painting my plenum, and then it should be all fine. So I'll get back to you once everything is set for that part. So I went again and I got the manifold painted. It's right there. I know it's drying a little bit. So I went ahead and I emptied out my oil catch can a little bit, and it's been about a month or two, I believe, since I last emptied it, and there's it's not. Well, it's a nice chunk. I haven't measured it. I'm gonna take a measuring cup and see if I can measure it out, or at least with a syringe, and I can measure out how much. But this is like a Fiji water bottle, so it's. Let's see if I can get a nice quiet amount. There's nothing wrong with the oil, but I'm not gonna put it back in there because since that can is used, I don't know what types of metals there might be in there, and it's not a good practice to put the oil from your catch can back into your engine, at least in my opinion. There might be others that say otherwise, but I wanted to ask you guys, how much oil do you guys normally catch in your catch can monthly? This is NA, so turbo applications will probably have more due to blow-by, but this is an 05 DE, non-rev up. So yeah, let me know in the comments how much you guys are getting, but it's a pretty good amount. But all this basically would have gone back into your motor at the time frame of a month or two, so you spared your engine all that oil consumption. In the end, I normally top off my oil every month, so, and I check it almost every week or every 2 weeks. But yeah, just showing you guys that and the advantages of having a catch can. So mine's a bit of a MacGyver because I got it used, and it was an open. Well, I'll show you since we have time now. But it's ghetto as shit. So I basically JB welded a disc onto the, because this basically had a big breather tank, so it was called an open tank. Basically means that the passenger side and the driver's side, which I have it not hooked up, basically go into this tube and then they come out through the little filter. The problem with those is that it creates a lot of oil fumes, and for those of you who are environmentally conscious, basically people that don't add test pipes, that's very bad, because obviously you're releasing oil fumes into the atmosphere. That aside, I basically decided to close this and make it into a single, which basically means it takes your passenger side PCV right there, which is that little valve. Let me see if I can zoom in. It's that little valve right there, PCV valve. It goes into the catch can, which is baffled. There is a piece here that's baffled sideways. Doesn't have any mesh, but it's still baffled. And it is enclosed, so eventually I'll probably buy one, but I had this and I decided, what the hell, let me use this. So I JB welded a lot of, I basically JB welded a washer on top, and on top of that I welded this L-shaped tube, and this is really lazy, and I also JB welded a fitting on it. So get something legit. This is only temporary because I was using a lot of oil and I needed something at the moment, so this is what I'm running now. I am gonna decide to change for a legit catch can, but The good thing is that the mount is awesome though. It mounts right here and it's super ninja, because the mount, I don't know if you saw it in the beginning, but in the beginning you'll see that the cover basically covers it like this, so you can't even see it. It's awesome. So this is a good place to mount these, in my opinion, unless you have a breather, which if you have a breather it won't fit because the breather sits about up here. So yeah, that's it, and I caught all that oil with it. So yeah, that's it. So right now I'm just waiting on the touch-ups to dry a little bit. This is wrinkle paint, so it does dry a little bit slower, but I think with enough time it'll dry, because I didn't have the time to powder coat this, so I just wrinkle painted it, and it's been pretty good. It's been almost 2 years since you know I did it, and it's still holding up pretty well, except for this spot right here, which is obviously it's kind of rough to get to, and probably the first time I did it I was very speedy about it. So this time I think it should hold, and if not, then I'll just get another one and powder coat it one day. But for now, this is it. So let me save, and I'll wait a little bit while this thing dries, and then we'll get back to the install. Alright, so I'm gonna give you an advice. On this hose back here, I would remove the clamp that's on here. This is the drain hose. I'd remove this clamp that's on here, and I would just put one of obviously a smaller version of I forget what these are called, but see if we can, you know what these are. Just use one of these and then aim it this way. That way it's a lot easier to remove. You just stick a screwdriver back there and remove it, because that's always a pain in the ass area to do it. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the spacer on. So I'm going to vote with keeping this the stock gasket on. So again, keep in mind this is the gasket for the section. I already removed these two bolts. You'll see that they're not there, and for that I used the 4mm socket, and then I marked them also because they're number 17 and I think 11, or is it 10? Well, it's either 10 or 11, I'm not sure which one it was. But yeah, once you have the spacer on, then you basically put the plenum on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the plenum bolts and I'm going to put a little bit of Loctite on them, so they go in, well, so they lock, excuse me, got the thing tangled. So these are the plenum bolts, these are the 6, and this is number 9. So the shorter ones go in the front, the longer ones go in the back of the plenum. So basically, longer ones, shorter ones, obviously, see the size. See how it's angled. So take some blue Loctite and add a little bit to the bottom of the threads, and that's it. These don't need any, and you don't need to go crazy because you're using, this thing's not zooming in at all. Come on, focus. There it goes. So sorry about that. Yeah, these are going to be in inch pounds, so it's going to be 40 inch pounds. I'm sorry, 40 inch pounds, 60 inch, well, 40, 80, and 100. Yeah, 40, 80, and 100. So, and there's obviously an order, which I will show you once again. It's in the install manual, which I have right there, which is a good idea to print and have it. And yeah, and that's it. And then we use the spacers for the bolts, for the, the washers for for spacers for the strut bar. And that's it. And then we do the reset procedure, and that's it. That's all she wrote for it. So let me put the camera back on the tripod, and there we go. So I'm gonna go ahead and install the plenum and start bolting everything up. What you're gonna do is you're gonna put all the 6 bolts in. Let this thing zoom in. Put all the 6 bolts in. Fucking drop the bolt and it scratched it up a little bit. So whatever. And then basically what you're gonna do is that when you put the bolts in, before installing, you have to put these cups in. So these are the cup spacers. These spacers have to go with the cup upward, so up like this. Because if you put them this way, it's not gonna sit right on the intake, and you're basically, it's gonna be lifted about this high. So if you install it wrong, you'll be able to tell because you'll get an instant leak. So again, remember, cup up, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I have to use both hands, so I can't really film this accurately, but put them each one and then basically just drop the plenum on top of the lower. Okay, so let me do that. Put the cups in. This is what the cups look like on the inside. So if you notice, they're all flat. That's how they're gonna go down. Okay, so after you got this, basically you're gonna just drop this where it goes. Now, here's a perfect example of what I was talking about. Alright, since, let me get a small little screwdriver. Since, see how it's pinched? That's exactly what you're trying to avoid. So with a little screwdriver, you're basically going to pull there. So that's it. So just make sure you do that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start putting on all the bolts. Making sure this. So let me take my little socket. So like it's better to use. So if you have a little ramp, you can ramp up the car that way. It brings up the car at a higher level, so you don't have to bend over as much. I'm tall as fuck, so I should have done that initially, but it's fine. So right now all you want to do is just snug them very, very gently, okay? These are inch pounds, not foot pounds, okay? Don't get them confused. If you torque these to foot pounds, I don't want you bitching, oh, you didn't say it enough in the video, whatever. You're gonna fuck up the motor and you're not gonna have a good day, okay? You're gonna have to buy a new lower plenum, a new upper, well no, not a new upper, but depending on the severity of the damage, okay? So right now, just tighten them snug, that way they hold their position, and that's it, okay? And now finally, take that same little screwdriver from earlier, and do this thing again, just to make sure that the seal is fine. The seal is good. So I'm going to go ahead and put all the other bolts in, and then we'll get on with the install. This cup holds all the bolts from Motodyne, so they're all the same length, which is good. That way you don't have to worry about length from all of them, because the OEM ones, as you saw, have 3 different lengths. I mean, have like 3 or 4. So these guys are all the same, so these can go anywhere. So just use your sheet. This guy, which you should have printed. Whatever. Use this sheet, which you should have printed, and go one by one, making sure that all these bolts are back where they go. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. And again, I'm gonna spare you that lengthy process. All right. So I have all the bolts. Each one of those bolts snugged up very, very lightly. I basically just like rub my hands together. Okay. That's how tight these are right now. So I'm gonna go right now and go behind the plenum. Please don't mind that wet spot. That's just paint that's drying because I scratched it. So I'm gonna remember, this is economy. I don't have money right now to like fucking powder coat that shit, even though in the future I will. Right now I'm gonna go behind the throttle body and reinstall all the connectors I disconnected earlier. So go ahead and do that, and then I'm gonna get all the hoses in. And then the last thing you're going to do is put your intake in, okay? Which is the same thing for me. So let me go ahead and do that now. Alright, so I got the hoses and connectors all back up. So now comes the fun part, torquing. So you're going to do 40 inch pounds, 80 inch pounds, 100. I think I've already said this plenty of times. If not, now you know. Print this out. This will help you tremendously. Or if not, or if you have the instructions from Motodyne, use theirs. Theirs basically are the same thing as the FMS. I mean FSM, sorry. So you're going to go in that order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, whatever. You're going to do all of them in 40, all of them in 80, and all of them in 100. Okay? So now, if you have don't have one of these, which I highly suggest you buy, rent, don't steal, but acquire one of these in some way, shape, or form. You're going to put it, so I can get it to focus. You're going to see it's in inch pounds. If it'll focus. inch pounds. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. So 40, 80, and 100. Do that to all of them, and you'll be set. So I'm really not gonna bore you with this one. So I'm come back when I get all those taken care of. Alright, so that's installed already. I went ahead and I retightened my intake and all that jazz. All the bolts have been torqued to spec. Sorry, it's blurry. And I went ahead and I reinstalled my plenum. My strut bar. So, here's the thing. I basically got, and these are like Home Depot washers, but each one measures about 1 millimeter. So, the clearance is per the manual for the strut bar, and let me see if I can position this here so you guys can see it easier. So the clearance between this section and the actual plenum should be 10 millimeters. So hold on, give me a second. What the fuck I did with that little cable? So, what I ended up doing, for those people that can't read or can't do anything in metrics, that 1 is 10 millimeters, that's 2 is 20, etc. So the FSM basically says it has to be between 10 and 15 and 17 millimeters. So I basically got a piece of wire and I marked it. That mark from I'm holding it is 10 millimeters, and then that's 15. Okay, so what I ended up doing is more or less eyeballing that there's at least 10 millimeters between any point and the lowest point of contact between the bottom part. Obviously this is not perfect, but it'll give you more or less an idea. So after you do that, you can go ahead and bolt, and I have washers on that side. Mind you, I'm missing some bolts, so I have washers on that side and then washers on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and retighten those to spec, which should be about 20 to 24 foot-pounds, and then basically realign that piece right there with my 24 millimeter that I had to go out and buy because I didn't have one, so I had to use a really shitty technique, basically this guy. So as you see, all the teeth are basically, don't do that, buy that. And yeah, that's it. After this, I'm gonna do the relearn procedure, and we'll see how it goes. Alright guys, engine is fully put together. Everything is going as what it should be. I already did the two relearns, the throttle body and the accelerator pedal. I'm waiting for the car to warm up so I could do the actually no, the throttle body is the one that I need to do now, which is why I need to leave the car running for a little bit so it warms up. But yeah, that's about it. Make sure you check for vacuum leaks. If you have a weird idle, make sure you check all around. If you have a smoke machine, that'll really help. There are other methods of doing it, like using starter fluid, but I generally don't like using flammable liquids next to a motor. So don't do that, okay? Don't do that. So check your hoses, making sure, like if you have a leak, check your hoses. That one in the back. Yeah, so making sure everything is good. So yeah, you should be fine. So enjoy your new thermal spacer thingy. Peace. See you next time.